Hey Rob, thank you so much for being here. Boy, you've been busy over the past few months, haven't you?
We've been very busy. Yeah, since February, we've been, in COVID response. Then we've had two hurricanes, and we've got some issues going on with civil disturbances in the region and the country. So we got a lot going on right now.
Well, let's talk hurricane season. We are officially in hurricane season. And like you said, there's already been two named storms. 2020 is not messing around. So we need people to really be prepared. And this year might be a little bit more challenging just because of all the COVID-19 stuff. How are we as a city taking a look at our plans and maybe adjusting to make sure that we're covering both of those types of emergencies?
Yeah, so it's something that everybody's working on right now because COVID presents such a challenge for us in how we order evacuations, do sheltering in a congregate setting. A congregate setting is where everybody's together. And so it's a challenge for everybody, from the federal government to the state government to the local government. Everybody's working on how we're going to solve this COVID sheltering problem. So, and then also on top of that, for our citizens, there's going to be some supply chain issues that could pop up to make hurricane response even more difficult than it already is. So what we're looking at the city is how are we going to change our sheltering operations? How are we going to adjust things to comply with social distancing, masking, testing, contact tracing? All that stuff is on the table. We're looking at all that stuff. But the big thing that citizens really need to focus on is getting their supplies in early and things like that.
So let's dive into what our community members should be doing. We always tell them immediately as soon as you can to start prepping that emergency kit. What's going to be different about that this year? Anything extra that they should consider throwing in there because of COVID?
Well, obviously, the things that you need to social distance, like masks, gloves, hand sanitizer, that's going to be super important this year, especially if you're thinking about going to a shelter where you're going to be around a lot of other people. So the big thing is, adjust your kits to have those items that you've been, using for the last couple of months, but also anticipate that when you go to the store to get, this thing or that thing, that maybe just like you've seen with toilet paper or paper towels, maybe it's not there. So everybody's going to be prepping for hurricane season at the exact same time, and we've seen the supply chain be very challenged by COVID. So I would just plan some more time into your kit making. Adjust your plans if you can. If you have not done a good job of planning to stay with family and friends out of the area or in a higher flood zone, a hurricane evacuation zone, that's really something you should look at this year, because if you're not comfortable being around other people in this COVID environment, you really need to take the sheltering, the evacuation decision-making process into your own hands and take charge of that, because you do not want to wait to the last minute and then you have to go to a shelter where you're going to be uncomfortable from a COVID perspective, being around a bunch of other people.
So let's talk a little bit about the idea of sheltering and evacuating. We as a city will be prepared to as much of an extent as we can to take people in should the need arise. But what we're trying to get across to our residents is that the best case scenario is for you to be able to self-sustain, whether that means, leave your home or shelter in place. So talk to me a little bit about that, and especially know your zone and knowing where you live within the city.
Yeah, so it's really important for citizens to know their zone. So you can go to, you can Google Know Your Zone, VA, Virginia, and you can look up your zone, your evacuation zone, by your address. And we've really changed the evacuation model in that we're not asking people to evacuate all the way to Danville or Harrisonburg or anything like that. What you can do with this zone map now is look and see if I'm in A, which is the lowest zone and the most likely to evacuate. Do I have friends that live in zone B or zone C or zone D? And can I go to their house and hunker down during an evacuation order instead of going all the way to, Richmond? And so that's really what we want people to kind of take that next step, to make that plan, to get personally prepared. It's going to be more critical than ever in this COVID environment to have personal preparedness related to hurricane. evacuation and sheltering. We want citizens to get prepared to understand that it's going to be difficult to accomplish sheltering in a COVID environment.
Mm-hmm. And Rob, we can't talk about hurricanes without talking about flood insurance. Everybody needs it.
Everybody needs it. In our city, we highly recommend that every citizen look at flood insurance. It can flood anywhere it can rain, and so that's everywhere. Mm-hmm. So 80%, over 80% of our flood losses in Hurricane Matthew a couple years back were outside of the FEMA designated flood zone, flood insurance area. So we really encourage everybody to get flood insurance. Even if you're outside of the FEMA flood insurance area, your flood insurance can be very, very affordable, $300 or $400 for a year of, hundreds of thousands of dollars of coverage. So we really want citizens to look at that. If you're in the FEMA flood zone, you need to have that flood insurance. You need to look at your policy, make sure it's up to date. And that is the primary tool that FEMA uses for flood recovery. If you're waiting for FEMA to come in and say, here's your FEMA check, those famous FEMA checks that people count on, the average FEMA check that somebody gives that doesn't have flood insurance is about $6,000. So if you're thinking that FEMA's going to come in and say, hey, here, I'm going to fix your home, $6,000 doesn't go a long way when you're talking about a flood loss at your house. So get flood insurance.
So all of this is being self-sufficient, being prepared ahead of time. Right. Rob, anything else you want to say?
No, just go out there and get prepared. Look up your zone, your evacuation zone, get that flood insurance.
All right, we will put links to everything and more information. Robb Braidwood, thank you so much.